Hi guys, so in today's video we are going to cover the concept of defamation, which is a part of legal aptitude if you're appearing for any law entrance exams, or if you're a law student it's the part of law of torts as well as law of crimes. So let us quickly see the roadmap for today's session. So as you can see, we would be dealing with the meaning, classification and consequences of defamation. Then we would be touching upon three important concepts of libel, slander and innuendo. We would then be seeing which two rights are often seen as conflicting rights when we talk about defamation. Further, the misuse of defamation, and lastly, the defenses available when you are charged with defamation. So let us start with this famous quote by Shakespeare. He that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. So this quote has often been talked about when we talk about defamation. So what is the meaning of defamation? What does this controversial term even mean? You must have often heard that so and so person was charged with crores of rupees for defamation, or so and so celebrity has filed a case for defamation, so on and so forth. So before answering this question that what defamation is, let us talk about reputation. So obviously you know what reputation is, but did you know that reputation is your right? So has been held by the courts in various cases, and Subramaniam Swamy versus Union of India being one of the cases. So the right to enjoyment of a good reputation is a valuable privilege. So obviously you have the right to protect your reputation, which is also one of the reasons that the Constitution of India has recognized right to reputation as a fundamental right as a part of Article 21 of the Constitution. So therefore, right to reputation has been held at par with various other fundamental rights which the Constitution guarantees. Now let us see what defamation is. So you can see the entire breakup of what it actually consists of. But if I have to simply explain to you what defamation is, it is basically that somebody is doing an action or act by virtue of which your reputation is being harmed. That's it. Simply put, that's defamation. If you want to see a definition of what it is, you can refer to the definition by Professor Winfield. The good part about this definition is that it talks about right-thinking members of the society. So defamation is the publication of a statement which tends to lower a person in the estimation of right-thinking members of society, generally, or which tends to make them shun or avoid that person. So it talks about an important concept, which is the right thinking members of the society. So it's not the case that there is an overly sensitive person and he finds everything offensive. So that would not amount to defamation. What amounts to defamation is what a person thinks who is also a right thinking member of the society. In that person's opinion, if your reputation is being lowered, then that would definitely amount to defamation. So my question to you is defamation a civil wrong or a criminal wrong? So obviously when I began, I already told you it's part of law of torts as well as law of crimes. So my guess is you must have already guessed that it's both. It's a civil wrong as well as a criminal wrong. So when you talk about civil wrong, it will come under the concept of law of torts. So as a tort, it is something which injures the reputation and therefore it is actionable. So how would it be actionable? Basically, you would be filing a civil suit for damages. That would be under tort law. When you talk about criminal law, it's a criminal offense as per section 499 of the Indian Penal Code, and the punishment for which is mentioned in section 500. So it is punishable with simple imprisonment up to 2 years or fine or both. Now you may ask whether whether these two proceedings can go on simultaneously. Won't this amount to double jeopardy or multiplicity of suits? So the answer is no. You can file suits under civil law and criminal law simultaneously. So both of them have different remedies. If you see, under civil law, you are asking for compensation. Under criminal law, there is a penalty which is mentioned in section 500 of the IPC. Thus, both these suits can run simultaneously. So you have remedy under civil law as well as criminal law. So now let us see the classification. So this classification is very important as per common law. Why? Because as per common law, slander is a civil wrong and libel is a criminal wrong. But as you can see, Indian law makes no such differentiation. So for Indian law, slander and libel both amount to defamation equally. So whether you choose to go under civil law or criminal law is another question. But for India, there is no differentiation as is done in common law. So slander, simply put, is something which you are doing as a result of spoken words or gestures, due to which you are lowering somebody's image. Whereas libel is sort of like a permanent form of defamation. It's a published defamation. So it could be either in writing, in a movie, or a picture. So as you can see the examples, if I'm questioning somebody's chastity in an interview, I am being slanderous towards that person. So that would be slander. It's done by virtue of oral communication, whereas libel is something which is done in a probably a written format, a permanent form. So X printed some advertisement saying Y is bankrupt, but Y was not. Thus, it was representation in a specific form, and this would amount to defamation. But in common law, libel would be a criminal wrong and slander would be a civil wrong. Whereas in India, both of them come under defamation. You can either choose to go under civil law, criminal law, or both. Now, let us see this interesting concept of innuendo. It's really interesting because basically what it says is that maybe a sentence might not be defamatory on the first go, but the implied meaning of this is something which is defamatory. So to say, for example, let us take the example, Sita gave birth to a baby. Now, this is not a defamatory statement, right? But if Sita is unmarried, then according to the societal norms, this would be something which is defamatory. So that is what innuendo is. It is basically the secondary or the implied meaning. Now, obviously, whoever is claiming, whoever is alleging that there is a secondary meaning, that person has to prove that okay, this is the secondary meaning and that is why this sentence is defamatory to me. Now, that being said, let us see the two conflicting rights. So as you can see, the two conflicting rights are freedom of speech and expression, which is guaranteed under Article 19(1) Clause A of the Constitution, and the right to reputation, which comes under Article 21. So these two rights have often been in conflict, and Supreme Court has time and again addressed this conflict as well. So Article 19(1)(a), it's freedom of speech, but can you express, can you impose this freedom, can you use this freedom in a way which hampers somebody else's right? No, right? You can't do that. Not only talking about these two rights, any fundamental right cannot be exercised in such a manner wherein you are violating somebody else's fundamental right, be it whichever right, be it right to life, be it right to equality, or anything in that case. So Article 92, that is also one of the reasons why each fundamental right comes with a reasonable restriction. So for 19(1)(a), 19 clause 2 is the reasonable restriction which imposes certain restrictions on freedom of free speech and expression. So that is covered under defamation. So the court has again time and again emphasized that you have to balance these two rights. You have to make sure that your freedom of speech is exercised in a manner that the right to reputation of somebody else is not being jeopardized. So now let us see what is the misuse. So the reason why I have only dealt with section 499 of IPC and not tort law is because the gravity or the liability which comes with section 499 is greater because it's a criminal liability, and which is why this section is often being misused. Simply, since we already saw that freedom of speech is the right which is the conflicting right, you can say that, basically that is the right which is often curbed. So freedom of speech is often curbed on the garb of right to reputation. So often you may have seen that, it is used as a tool of oppression against people who are simply just criticizing the government. So criticizing the government is not a wrong thing, right? You're not committing the act of sedition. That's an entirely different thing. You have the right to express your opinion against a government, whether it's good or bad, that's another thing. So often it's seen that, political agendas have also been promulgated because of the entire concept of defamation, because people have just gone ahead and charged people of defamation, wherein they were simply just exercising their freedom of speech and expression. So to give you an example, currently there are 120 plus defamation cases that have been filed against The Hindu, which is a newspaper, by the Tamil Nadu government. So that speaks a lot. Now, let us see the defenses which are available against defamation. So, there are three broad categories. First would be truth and justification. So, obviously, if you're speaking something which is truth, which might be defamatory to somebody, but for the very fact that you are speaking the truth, it might act as a defense when you talk about defamation. Secondly, if there is an opinion you are making in public interest, it could be in good faith, it would not have malice basically. So maybe I went for a movie and I simply did not like that movie. So I'm expressing my opinion that, this so and so movie is not good. So this would be fair comment. It won't amount to defamation. Lastly, privilege. So privilege would be of two kinds. First is absolute privilege or qualified. So when we talk about absolute privilege, it usually deals with the parliamentary proceedings and so on and so forth. So basically, members of parliament, they have the absolute privilege, and the defamation case cannot be filed against them for anything which has been said during those proceedings. Similarly, qualified privilege exists for people who are saying something in public good or in public interest without there being any malice. So the difference, the main point of difference would be the point of malice. So your intention of saying something or having malice would be a defense when it's talking about absolute privilege, but it won't be a defense if you're talking about qualified privilege. So to get the qualified privilege, you have to make sure that there is no malice in that statement. That being said, let us end with this quote which says, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me." Well, that's not the case when you talk about defamation, right? So yeah, that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. I will be coming up with more such legal concepts, so stay tuned. Thank you.